How you doing today? This is Gary Fast with FastBodies resin bodies for slot cars. This will be our second video. What we're going to look at today, what we're going to explore is how to take the resin bodies and mount them onto the chassis using the mounts that I supply. So we're going to just go forward here. I'm going to show two different bodies, the Chaparral 2F and also the new C8R Corvette. Give you an idea how to mount those. Will be very similar. So let's get going here and let's see how this turns out. Okay, so now I'm going to, some of the things are out of focus here or out of the picture frame. First of all, I'd like to do is I apologize for the windbreaker I'm wearing. I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but I use this old scruffy thing so when I'm working on resin, working with super glue, I don't care if I ruin this. This thing's about 25 years old. So we're going to talk about the mounts now. How are we going to mount the body and mount the resin body so that you get a nice, smooth, flat looking body and it flows nice on the track. First of all, let me give you a brief explanation of the mounts that you're going to get in the kit. I'm going to try, I always talk with my hands, so I'm going to try to keep my hands out of the way. I'm going to be bringing supplies into the frame so you see what it is. Remember, go back and look at the first video because the tools that you'll need are very important. Remember, we're always talking about a Dremel, we're talking about your bits, we're talking about toothpicks, emery boards, pencil, and so on and so forth. So the first thing we're going to talk about here is the mounts. These are the 2F mounts, the block style. These are for the Corvette, both Corvettes, C7, C8. Try to do a little magic inside the bodies, so we use the same mounts for two different bodies. Usually the mounts are custom made for each body. And then I'm kind of making a generic, real thin mount that, I don't know if you can pick this up, but it's a mount that has got some indentations in a flat piece of resin. And you can actually, if I do it with a pencil here, you cut that out and that's where the tab fits if you're going to have your clip for your car. I really don't like using the body clips, but this might help anybody out who's using a Tomy chassis, a Super G Plus, maybe a Lifelike. Lifelike's a little bit wide, but old Magna Traction that has the clips built into the chassis. These might help you out. So I'm just supplying those. I'm going to start doing that with the Mirage, the Ford Mirage body. But let's not spend too much time on this. The way I make the mounts are in what's called an open face mold. I'm going to use a pencil so I can keep my hands out of the way. This is a very shallow open face mold. And so whenever you pour the resin in, actually I put it in with a popsicle stick, you're going to get a little overflow like that. You see what that looks like? See what that looks like? So when I pop it out of there, it's going to have resin attached to it. Some come out nice and clean like that. Some come out extra resin. Same thing with a Corvette. If you see this right here, I didn't get too much overflow. So these are pretty flat. In fact, they'll be maybe even slightly convex right here, which is okay because they're built to the height or the width that I want them. Same thing for the 2F. Now, what I do is I mark every one of my mounts with a L for left, R for right. Now, when you're looking at a car, just like you're in a domestic car, a sedan, right here in USA, the left side of the car, left side, this is the driver's side, passenger side, obviously from the nose. So your left mount, your L mount will always go on the left side of the car looking down at it, and there are obviously for the right side looking down on the passenger side. Just so you know why I put that on there, that designation on there. So as an example, I'm going to use the Corvette blocks here as examples because they're a little bit bigger. What you can see is that because I wear reading glasses, and I'm sure these are a little tiny and so on like that, sometimes it helps to take a pencil, and I know maybe my hand's in the way, but what you do is fill in the little R, fill in a little L, so when you're looking at them, you can obviously see the R and the L on here. Makes it easier when you're picking them up and you're trying to use them. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get some of this out of the way. Oh, let me explain this too. Whenever you do have the overflow for the resin, I know again my hands are in the way, what you do is you get these is just take them, you can cut the resin off like this, use your cuticle scissors, you can take it and you can just actually break it off with your hand. You can take your emery boards, remember we talked about those, and you can just kind of file them. It's going to knock the resin right off there. Okay? And you just file them into shape, and now you got your board there. And then obviously to take out the inside of the mounts, you got to be very careful, obviously, what you get your X-Acto knife in there and you just start cutting out. And I don't want to waste too much time on this, but you can cut out where now you got your little opening here, and I just broke it, but I'm trying to do it quickly. You have your little opening here so that's where your tab fits. Just be careful with that. That's just something that you want to obviously use. You know, I don't know if these will work for you, but you know, obviously you have something else to use. So I just want to let you know how we make the mounts, how I label them, how I scribe into them on there, and then we'll go now on how to mount them. So let's get all this out of the way. I am going to keep a couple of these here just as examples. We're going to work on the Corvette first. So here's a left and a right mount over here. So let's take the Corvette. Let's move things out of the way. And you can see I've already got a preset a set of mounts in there. I've already pre-made them. But here's the way you're going to get the car. Here's your chassis. So what you're going to do is you're going to have your mounts, and when you make the left, I want you to pretend like you're on Orange County Choppers or you're Chip Foose or any of the people, Dave Kindig, and you're putting these cars together. You pre-assemble them first. They pre-assemble everything, they fit them, they make sure everything works. Then they take it and they paint them or reassemble them. So what we want to do is I made this piece of track. Let's start out with the piece of track. Take an old broken piece of track. I've used this for painting. I use it for everything. But you can see I've glued little flat stock to there because it acts as shims. Now originally I started this out because I used that for my Indy cars. When I placed the body forward on there like this, I want to make sure that my wing was always flat. So it looked nice when the body was mounted. But we're going to go, when we use the 2F on here, I'm going to show you how these shims will work for you. So obviously you want a piece of track in front of you because you want to make sure that your body is not tilted from one side to the other. So what you do is once you get your mounts put in there, you're going to take your body and you're going to find that those mounts won't exactly fit in. Here's the right side. We're going to take the left side mount here and you're going to go like this and you're going to find out that it doesn't exactly fit in. I make a little cavity inside most of my bodies. That's so the mounts will just go ahead and just slip right in. So what you want to do is you're just going to take, it's always 2 or 3 little strokes to knock that resin down. And then you're going to go tab to the top because that's how it mounts. And you say, there it fits right in. You saw it slides right in between this area. Let's see if I can darken this out with the pencil. If you can see that, that's where your mounts are going to fit. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our right and left mounts. And the reason why I go right and left is you can't really see them, but this particular mount is a little bit less here, shallower here than it is here, because the bodies, sometimes the sides tilt in. So what I'm doing is I'm custom making the mounts so that your chassis will sit nice and square in there. So we're going to take the left and we're going to mount it into the left tab, the tab in the hole. We're going to take the right one, mount it in. And we're going to take this and we're going to place this in the car like this. And it should just pretty much fall right in. And there you go. And this thing will just sit nice and flat. If you can see this, I'm hoping that I'm not blocking the camera, but you're going to see it. And you want to make sure right here that your wheels are rolling. And they're rolling nice and easy. So that just by plopping a body on there. So how we're going to do this now is we're going to just make sure that we have everything the way we need to have it. We'll get all the extra pieces out of the way. So now we're going to start mounting the car. I've got the super glue off to the side. I've just put some dab on a paper plate. I use Gorilla Super Glue Gel. The reason why I use the gel is because when I put it on a toothpick, it's not rolling off. I don't have to use the big container to put the glue on. I can just apply it with a toothpick. So we get the glue out of the way. So what we're going to do here, the glue's not going to dry immediately. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure we just fit everything. And we're going to make sure that everything fits nice and smooth. And I also have the Dremel set. Let me show you one more step beforehand. Remember we were talking about the Dremel, and I got this little pin bit in there. If for some reason, I'm going to run the Dremel in a second, you want to clean out between here, you use the little pin tip here, and this is going to be noisy. And you take it, and you can just run it back and forth here like that. And all you're doing, and I use it a little bit more, but all you're doing is squaring up the edges so that, again, your mount will fit in this little cavity. So again, we're going to make sure everything is fitting properly. Make sure I have the right mounts here. Okay, so we've got the glue stain off here, so here's what I'm going to do. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to glue the left side in first. Again, upside down, left side. So I'm going to take a little bit of glue on the tip of my toothpick, and I'm just going to put it on the flat right here, right in the middle. That's all I'm going to do. And it'll be okay for a second. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to put our left side in our left side, right side in our right side. And we're going to take this, we're going to drop this chassis in, if I can get it straight on my fingers. I got glue on the mounts here, so now they're sticking to my fingers. And we just put it in like that. And we're sitting it down on the track, making sure everything's nice and square. Then I'm going to take it and I'm going to press with my fingers so that I can get that glue just to kind of set up on that mount. We're just gluing one mount at a time. We're not trying to get nutty here. We're not trying to get too much going on. There's no sense in rushing this. It doesn't take too long. You don't want to use too much glue. The reason why I put out the toothpick is put it in the flat areas, because what's happening is that you don't want to squeegee out or squeeze out and get on your chassis, and then you can't get your chassis out. So you see how only one mount came out, and I just make sure I press it in there and it's in there nice and tight. So now what we're going to do, again, you're doing your pre-assembly thing, and we're going to go take this, and we're going to do this again. We're just going to test fit everything. And I'm going to snap in the chassis, just like we were. Now I've got the right side is still loose. And I'm going to put this down. And boy, look at those wheels. I don't know if you can see that, but those wheels are turning nice and easy. I'm not really pressing down. And the car sits pretty flat. And we're going to make sure it does when we glue in our second mount. So now we're going to take this. Again, we're going to take this out. Left mount still stays in. I notice this was hanging up just a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take a little bit off of this end right here, like that. And now I'm going to take with my toothpick, again off camera, we're going to take just a little bit of glue. I'm going to put it in the flat area right here. You can see that. We're going to get this mount, take the tab, put it in the slot. We're going to hold this in, and I'm going to push that side in next, in between the two guides. And I'm going to snap the chassis in. And now I'm going to press it. So now I look like it's nice and square. Again, we're going to roll the wheels. We're going to look at the nose of the car pretty quickly. See how nice and flat that is. Wheels are turning. We're going to take that. Now I'm going to take that off, and I'm going to squeeze that again. Now we're just making sure that that glue is taking set, setting itself up over on that other mount that we just glued. And I'm squeezing pretty good. You don't have to, you don't have to put a vise on it. Just kind of pushing with the top of my fingers in. This is the fresh mount here. And what I'm going to do then is, let's say if we're going to snap the body, and if all the mounts stay in the body, and they do. Now, then what I do is, it depends really, I'm reaching for toothpicks, how much more glue do you want to put in there? So we're going to take it, you put it on the outside of the mounts at either end, and it's going to I'm globbing a pretty decent amount in there. And you can put it down here if you see any cavity holes or anything like that where it's not perfectly flush against each other. You can do it there. I don't think we need to do that. And then we're going to do it over here too. So we got a 3-point glue in there. that even if later on the mount pops out, you don't have so much glue in there that it takes half the body with it. If it pops out, breaks out, all you're going to do is say, hey, listen, just going to maybe run the emery board over it again, and we're going to just kind of clean it up, and you just pop it back in again. These are not going to crack in half or break in half. So we put that glue on there. You give it a little time for it to set up. Sorry, reaching across. Take yourself a little paper towel. Wipe off the glue from the ends, just a little bit. Enough got in there. You can use your liquid glue if you'd like to. Up to you. But it's just something where obviously we just want to make sure that we get the excess out of there. I don't need it sticking to the chassis. So now you're going to take that, and there, that Corvette, that's mounted. It's ready to go. And look at how nice that rolls. Now, that's because we're making the bodies where I've made that cavity that accepts those mounts. Again, work the mounts, use your emery board, make sure that you've kind of set everything, fit it first, dry, no glue. Make sure it sits nice like that. Then when you mount it, if you can look up at it like this with the camera, just make sure that when you mount it, it's sitting nice and flat, sitting nice and square in the back. Hopefully I'm tilting the track so you can see it in the frame of the picture. But that's a good mount right there. I'm happy with that one. If for some reason your tires are hanging up, I don't worry about it whenever I do this. I always use the stock height tires. The reason is if I use a little bit smaller tire in the back whenever I'm racing or getting it on track and a little competitive, it's going to obviously give me a little bit more room in there. If not, you have your stone inside your Dremel. Remember, we use this stone. And I want you to just kind of just feather, if you can see here, whenever it's in the Dremel, you don't want to take and grind in any area because you'll now take your wheel wells and make them out of shape. You just want to kind of just feather, and you also want to tilt your stone like this because sometimes they'll hang up on that inner lip, and you want to make sure you get more out of the inside than you do tilting it this way, and then you take too much away from your arch and you ruin the look of the body. So that car right now is ready to go. I paint the car first. I'll decal it before I start putting the wing on the back. And we go from there. But that's how you mount a FastBodies Corvette. It works the same for just about every car I have. Now what we're going to do here, we're going to use the same track, and we're going to talk about the 2F. 2F's right. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at mounting the 2F, the Chaparral 2F. We want to get it low, but we don't want to get it too low. Now there's two different ways I want you to look at this. Is that I've got this sitting on the mounts right now, just like we did in the last portion of the video. It's got its little movement back and forth, but the mounts aren't glued yet. Now, if I take this, I don't know if you can hear that, but we got a little bit of body rubbing on the track. So is it too low? I don't know. I look at it here, the nose is right on the ground. Might be a little bit too low. This is why I said take the track piece. If you make yourself a track with a jig in it like this and have these plates here, you can actually then mount the car like this, and your nose will be a little bit up in the air. I don't know that I'm going to do that. I'm going to show you what I am going to do, so this way you'll have an idea. So what we're going to do, let's see if I can do this. I want to not spend a ton of time here. We're going to take this, and again, we're going to take this out here so that the mounts are loose. Again, in this body, I have the vertical pieces, but I don't have another piece here to stop the mount from coming down. So that's something that you'll have to work with. The reason why this body is made this way is because if the Corvette body is made for the Mega G Plus chassis. So it's specifically for this chassis, so this means that I only want the mount going so far. Much easier to dictate where the mounts are going to stop at, where they're going to move at, so that's why it's easy to mount. This one takes a little bit more, I guess, consciousness, talent, or whatever you want to put it. You just got to kind of pay attention to what you're doing. Otherwise, you'll sink it too far in. And I tried to make the walls of the side of the body tall enough so it'll fit over a multitude of 1.5 chassis, being that the Tomy S Plus chassis or G Plus chassis, Super G Plus, is a little bit taller chassis than say our Mega G is chassis. So we're going to use the Mega G. Same thing, we have the blocks with the tabs in them, so they're going to fit inside the cavities in the chassis. So what we're going to do is, these I've already made sure that the blocks are fitting inside the vertical pieces, just like we did previously. So we're going to take a little bit of glue, and we're going to take it, and we're going to just put a little bit in the flat spot right here. That's all we're going to do. And I'm not going to glob it in there, I'm just going to put a thin little layer in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our right side and left side mounts, turn the chassis upside down, and we're going to then put this in here, and we're going to get this down like this, make sure we're nice and flat, and turn it over and squeeze everything together. We're just going to let that set up. So it doesn't take very long. As soon as you squeeze against the glue, it wants to set up pretty quick. So I think we've had enough time on that. You know, the wheels are rolling nice and even. Body's a little low, but not bad. Try to keep refocusing the camera a little bit. I'll try to hold it down. So we're going to go now, take this out slowly. We got our mount in here. We're going to make sure that it's not moving. Everything's fine. So we're going to do the same thing on this side now. So now we're going to take this. We're going to get just a little bit of glue in there. Again, not much. Just enough to kind of coat right in the middle portion. You don't have to spread it too far back and forth. Get the tab inside here. Let it go in between the vertical mounts. And then snap your chassis in. Okay, we've got it snapped in. And we're going to kind of set it nice and flat. Like that. And I'm going to kind of press with the car on the track on this particular version. I know my hands are probably covering the whole body. We're going to kind of get like that, and again, we move nice and smooth. Everything's moving smooth. Everything's nice and flat. I'm going to make sure everything is set up. And now hopefully we're going to get this chassis out of here without moving the mounts. Yeah, I like that. That's good. So now, again, you got a little bit of rock in the body, just like we should have. Wheels, tires are nicely in there. Now we can leave it like that, because when it takes off, it's going to lift up. But you can hear just a little bit of body rubbing on the rails. And we're going to look at the side here and see the body's almost at the ground. And body's almost at the ground. A little bit close here on this side. So it's very simple what we're going to do. All we're going to do is take our, try to do this as quick as possible. We're going to take our emery board, and we're just going to take and just do nice and even across both sides. I'm going to put the round back into the rocker area. I'm going to do the nose nice and straight. I went across this way. Now we're going to go across this way. Still leaving plenty of room for the grill area, the intake. Now we're going to do this side over here. Don't want to take too much off. We're just going to try to get the effect. Going to get the round back into the rocker area. And we're going to snap that chassis back in. And we're going to say, look at the clearance now. Now we've got a little bit more clearance here. Got much more clearance there. And a little bit more clearance there. We're not against our track. Now I hear my tires. I got a little bit when I push the body down. I can hear that, and I can see it over there. But, you know, anytime you're going to accelerate, your body's always going to come up in the air. Always does. So we're pretty happy with that one. We don't have to re-round the wheel wells. We don't have to do anything there. So that's how it is. Now, if you do want to have it where you don't want it too far into the chassis, then what you do is go buy yourself some evergreen plastics strut, and you can put some plastic inside here to create the cavity like is in the Corvettes. You know, this is just flat stock in here that I glued in between here. That's in this area here. And then obviously when I remold the body, it just looks as one big molded in piece. So you can go ahead and put that in there. You got a little lean on the mount there. That's okay. It's a little crooked in there, but that's okay. As long as the tabs go inside the chassis, you're good. So again, that took us maybe, what, 4 or 5 minutes to get that in there. It's in there nice and solid. That body's not going anyplace. And it's nice and flat. Now is when you can start working on your struts for your rear wing and so on like that. Okay, so the 2F is that simple. A lot of explanation on the Corvette. That's why it took longer. But that's how quick you can glue those in and get them in there pretty straight. So thanks again. If you have any input, if you liked the video, just go ahead and chime in on the FastBodies page. And thanks again for watching. Take care.